This week on MS Refresh, Microsoft Build was last week, and there were some interesting updates, including a few that stood out to us in Microsoft Teams and the Power Platform. All that and more. Subscribe to stay in the know. This is the MS Refresh Show. Hi there, and welcome to the Matt and Sean 365 Refresh Show. This is episode 23 for the work week of June 1st, not May 31st, 2021. Coming from the East Coast of the U.S., my name is Matt Wade.
And as always from the West Coast, I'm Sean Bugler. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing great. How was your day off yesterday?
It was good. I had some barbecue. I had a couple of drinks. It was a nice, relaxing day. Minus me getting like a bug in my head, and I had to go and like tear apart the 8-hour workshop that I'm working on for the upcoming M365 Collaboration Conference. Have you done that before, where you're just like, you've got the talk, they loved the prompt, but then you just have to like tear it apart?
Oh yeah, and then of course you try to do far too much, and at first you're like, how can I fill 8 hours or 6 or whatever it is hours? And now it's like, wow, but how can I only fill 8 hours or 6, whatever the number is? It's like
100%. That's, I spent years as a technology trainer and consultant, and I used to joke I can introduce myself for about an hour if I need to.
If you have to, yes. Can relate.
But yeah, no, I mean, the reality is there's just so much cool stuff to talk about. And, an hour, I almost envy the idea of having just an hour, because, you can really only hit those cliff notes. But when you've got 6 hours, my God, you can talk about anything. They're just trapped with you.
Yeah, it is true. So I don't know. It should be fun. Let's see. Yesterday was like the first, or this past weekend at least. For those of you not in the U.S., yesterday was Memorial Day in the U.S., which is generally a holiday that we're weird with holidays in the U.S., where like the feds say that it's a holiday, but whether the private sector actually follows it or not, Memorial Day is the one of the few, other than like Christmas or Thanksgiving, that like
acknowledged.
Everybody takes it off. Yeah, so that's why we weren't on yesterday. But that was like the first time I think I've seen a number of my friends, their kids, in like a year and a half, just because of COVID and all that kind of stuff. So that, plus next week when we're at the conference that you're referencing here with the workshop, it's going to be major changes over the course of just 2 short weeks.
Register for right now.
Definitely.
By using the promo code Bugler, Bugler.
Absolutely. Let's see. So last week, I'm not a developer. I just unapologetically anti-developer, actually.
That's kind of your brand, is being.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Yeah. I just want to be able to press buttons in a GUI. If I have to do anything else, it's a fail as far as I'm concerned. So I generally don't pay attention to Microsoft Build, but that's our topic for today. So what the hell am I going to talk about today, Sean? What do you think?
Oh, there's always stuff for you. Like, I think it's interesting because I think particularly if there's anything that's interesting about the way that Microsoft has evolved over the last 5 years, 10 years really, they've really kind of changed what the word developer means, at least within their community. And it really can be like people who don't understand code but still are capable of building experiences. And I think the Power Platform is a great example of really blurring that line. I think there's, and of course they can't not talk about Teams. Literally, you will not find a conference that Microsoft has run in the last 4 years where they haven't talked about Teams.
Right. Yeah, no, that's true. And I actually kind of hate the term citizen developer. We need to find something I like the word maker, because the word developer just turns off so many people.
It's loaded.
It implies something that I think a lot of people that like me who don't develop, and like I might touch Power Automate here and there, and like maybe have tried to get 80% of an app in Power Apps out, but like, that kind of thing. So I would love a new term, but we've never been able to figure one out, but I guess we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah. The problem is citizen developer does kind of, I think, capture the zeitgeist of it, which is it's exciting, and it's letting you build experiences that otherwise developers were the only ones who could have built, so we'll find it eventually. But I hear you.
Yeah. And I tolerate it for now, I guess is what'll happen. But all right. So based on that, let's say using this new live format, let's take advantage. If you guys want to leave any comments in the video, go right ahead. We're actually going to take some questions at the end, or we'll follow them along during the session, and we're going to try to transfer or switch a little bit to take full advantage of our live format now, which is a bit new for us, but we're going to definitely do our best there. And let's say it's probably time to kick off moving into the news. What do you think, Sean?
Let's do it.
All righty.
This is the news.
Microsoft Build just happened, and while it's predominantly a developer-focused conference, there's a ton of interesting tidbits that we think have implications for the general Microsoft 365 users out there. Hopefully. One great example of this is the Organization Explorer, a new embedded app in Microsoft Outlook. Quoting from the Build Book of News, which we'll link in the show notes, quote, Organization Explorer helps people make connections across their organization. For example, employees can use Organization Explorer to discover team relationships across their company. It also allows people to visually search across their company to explore colleagues, weird phrasing, and teams, and identify skills to help them complete their work, end quote. Sounds like Delve with a fresh coat of paint. No. It'll be interesting to see what this actually looks like in practice, but at a minimum, the organizational chart experience is really nice and Outlook feels like a natural fit for it. Microsoft Teams apps for meetings, launched last year, is getting a handful of new tools to help build more immersive and useful experiences. This includes what's being described as, quote, shared stage integration, allowing apps to share space in a Teams meeting and enable things like collaborative whiteboarding and other multi-user collaboration experiences that have historically only been possible if somebody shares their screen, which is not an elegant experience. It also includes new meeting event APIs for increased automation opportunities and, soon, that Together Mode extensibility that we talked about a couple of weeks ago that will allow developers, and just normal people, to create custom Together Mode scenes. I've already seen at least one reference to The Muppet Show. Who's going to be the one to bring back Hollywood Squares? I hope you guys get that reference. They exist! After being announced at Ignite in 2019, Microsoft finally showcased a demo of the Fluid framework inside Teams and Outlook. In case you need a refresher, or you're just hearing about this now, the Fluid framework enables little card-like experiences, card-like components, to share real-time, web-powered, collaborative experiences across all of Microsoft 365. So you can share a to-do list in Teams and move it over to Outlook, all while others continue to interact with it wherever they happen to be. Quoting from the Book of News, quote, Fluid components can be copied and pasted across Teams chats and Office apps, end quote. Looking forward to seeing this arrive sooner rather than later, but from what we've seen so far, it looks like a really compelling experience that's going to help make sure that no matter where you are or how you're engaging, everybody's going to be looking at the same single pane of glass. Making good on their commitment to improve learning opportunities in the world of the Power Platform, Microsoft concurrently announced the retirement of the Power Apps Community Plan and the launch of the Power Apps Developer Plan, a new plan that allows users to create a free developer environment to develop and test apps, including support for, this is key, premium and custom connectors and Dataverse, which is something that wasn't possible with the community plan. This is an incredibly positive change to their existing developer-focused community plan and will undoubtedly provide a boost to those interested in exploring just how powerful and capable the Power Platform services can be. Lastly, Microsoft, which announced last year an exclusive partnership with GPT-3, the world's largest natural language model from OpenAI, is finally starting to seep into actual products. Seeing is believing, so I won't wax poetic here. Who am I kidding? But quoting from Microsoft themselves, quote, the new experience centers around three key scenarios. Natural language transforms to PowerFX code. I'm going to break that off for a second. Meaning this idea that you can actually type what you mean, sort of like natural language queries, and Power Apps will actually suggest the function that might help you accomplish that particular goal. PowerFX code transforms to natural language in programming, and then extension, programming by example, where users can input an example of a data pattern that actually trains the model, end quote. So there's some really, really cool stuff there. And again, I won't get too heavy into it right now. We'll talk about it in just a brief moment. But there's some really powerful opportunities here to use natural language and to interact with these developer experiences or pseudo developer experiences to actually do work. So there's a lot of opportunity there. I'm looking forward to it. Back to you, Matt.
That was the news.
All right. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
That was much better than last time. Yes, agreed. I can even get us so we're on the right side with the right name tags and all that kind of stuff. All right. So that was a lot of stuff that I don't understand. So, Sean, what was one of those things, especially that I probably wouldn't understand, that you felt was most notable this week?
That's very kind of you. So I feel like increasing over the last 3 years. I've been doing a lot more Power Platform work. There's just so much opportunity there. And I think specifically the two things that jump out to me are the developer plan and the GPT-3 integration. So I'll start with the first piece there. One of the big barriers to entry for the Power Platform is that people need a surface to learn on. Excel, you can open up Excel and you can practice. You can jump onto Udemy or whatever, and you can watch a YouTube video and you can figure it out. But as we get into these more premium licensed experiences, you start to see a real drop in the amount of people that are interested in learning, because that means they have to come out of pocket, or they have to convince their organizations to pay in order for them to actually get their hands on it. What the Power Apps developer plan actually does is it lets users create either in a Microsoft 365 developer tenant, which is free and anybody can create, or in their own tenant, create a developer, the word's just flown out of my head, a developer space where you can actually go and in your own little sandbox, create and test Power Apps without having to worry about licensing. It's amazing. It's a really great opportunity because it's going to let you try out premium connectors, of which there's an increasing amount of. It's going to let you share with your team members, which is something the community plan didn't let you do. It's almost limitless as long as you're using it for testing, which is awesome. That's actually the language they're using in Microsoft. It's almost limitless to let you try everything. Environments, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you, April.
So is there I guess the first thought is, being a person that has to run governance in my organization, like what stops somebody from running wild with this if they wanted to? Or is it an honor system, kind of like not parallaxing, multiplexing? I always mix those. Where like you could theoretically run one service account on one flow for 15,000 people and only pay for the one account for it, even though you're really helping 15,000 people who should probably have accounts. Like, it's an easy way to screw the system. Is there something in place for this? I'm not that I care. I'm not the one collecting fees, of course, but I'm just kind of curious.
Of course.
Yeah, right.
So there's a couple of things I've heard, and I'll be interested to get some clarity, because obviously we've got the one, the only April Denham with us here.
Oh, no, I have to watch what I say now.
But they do have metering in place. They haven't announced any hard limits, but they are going to be keeping a really close eye on what they call production scale utilization. The second piece that I've seen is that Power Apps are going to have a banner or some watermark that indicates that it's a test app. So you're not going to be able to get away with, squeezing in production usage without, the powers that be within your organization who, don't necessarily want to be seen using a test environment as that. DocuSign actually does something similar. So I think that those are going to be two key areas. They are looking really closely at it, but I appreciate that they're starting with this broad, open ability to take advantage of the platform, and I would imagine they'll start to tighten the screws if they see abuse.
Gotcha. All right, very cool.
Now, the second piece, really quickly, that I want to mention here is that GPT-3 integration. Are you familiar with GPT-3?
Nah.
So it's wild. It's a natural language model. It's the world's largest natural language model. And Microsoft actually entered into a direct partnership with the company OpenAI that built it. And the idea behind it is that it understands human language in a way that machines just haven't up to now. It can articulate, it can generate text, it understands intent, and it understands context. And it uses that language model to interact with language in a way that's really, really cool. But the way that Microsoft has applied it is super interesting. There's a lot of questions about how they were going to actually use GPT-3. And I, in my wildest dreams, wouldn't have imagined that the Power Platform was going to be where it started. But the idea behind it is much like you can in Google Sheets, for example, where you can use natural language querying, or in Power BI, where you can use natural language querying. And you can look at a data set and you can say, how much red wine did I sell? And that it can understand okay, you're talking about the red wine column and you're talking about sales or quantity, and it can
Right.
actually spit that data out.
Yep.
GPT-3 is going to apply that same logic to building PowerFX queries. It's also going to be able to apply it to suggesting the right functions to use, because I think discovery continues to be one of the hardest challenges, not just in, Power Apps in general, but, the PowerFX language, all the different expressions that are possible. So it's a huge transformational idea about how discovery works, but also how we can start to think through the best ways to analyze data, to extract data, to display data.
So I got a really deep understanding of where language understanding and natural language understanding, just NLP, natural language processing, can not meet the need. And I'm hopeful, for your sake in this case, that the new product that they purchase is better than what the Azure their language understanding services were. So I used to use
difference.
Yeah, I used to use Lewis a lot, and having to set up your own language models was a nightmare, because you had to basically from scratch think about what would any stupid person ever say that would mean the same thing that I'm trying to say here, and you had to cover for everything. It's one thing to try to develop or to design a GUI to be stupid proof. It's another thing to think of a language that, the language intent of stupid proof. And it's very, very difficult. It's just a lot of tediousness and a lot of time that it takes to build that out. So I'm hopeful to see that, definitely improve. I would, my biggest feature request, and I would go 9,000 upvotes on user voice if it still existed, or, well, I guess for Power Automate, it's in the Power Use community there. I would love a Power Automate step that could say, please take the time formatting from the previous step and format it into the time that I want it to be. Because I can never get time to work correctly in Power Automate. So if I can use that to fix all of my syntax errors in Power Automate, I would actually use Power Automate significantly more than I do. But I run into so many bugs that it takes longer to automate something than it is to actually just do it myself. Sometimes,
if you ever need any help with that, you let me
that's
know.
true. You'll send me a bill, right? By the way, how much did Levesque pay you for that plug of DocuSign a little earlier? That was really well slipped in. I'm impressed. I know.
Mistake on my part.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. Well, let me do a quick share here, because I do want to.
Go ahead.
I do want to show a couple quick things that I thought were really interesting. First off, you talked a little bit about. Let's make sure we got this. We talked a little bit about the new ability to create together mode setups here, which is pretty slick. This is way easier. We talked about this actually a couple of weeks ago, where it's they can either do this really right or they can do it really wrong, and they did it really right. So this is the UI for the developer portal to create these together mode things. So I'm sure organizations will be creating nice branded together mode experiences, which will be pretty sweet. You already kind of stole the thunder here, but yes, somebody has already pushed out the Muppets intro, so I'm sure those will be all over the place. I definitely know Hollywood Squares. I would be offended if too many people that would be listening right now would not know what Hollywood Square, at least in the U.S. I would hope it not be an age thing, but I feel like I'm not that old yet.
I think we export that stuff pretty well, so I wouldn't be shocked if the international community is familiar as well.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. I mean, I think at this point it's just been going out to space for so long that the Martians can definitely follow up. And then the really big thing was, so I have been kind of critical, not that I've said it too much because the concept doesn't come up very often, but the ability to put these live components in, or Microsoft, they call the whole the whole thing the fluid framework. And I don't like that term because it makes the fluent UI and the fluid framework, it's easy to kind of mix up. So they just sound alike. But that being said,
they're stealing the English language. Now
yes, they are.
They're too similar.
Not are. They stole the English language. That's already been done, happened, and finished. But I've seen a few times where they've used the fluid framework, and I never was sure what to call that. Well, now we know that it's called a live component, so that's what everyday users will call it. Of course, the developers and people that work on it on the back end will still refer to it as fluid. But I finally saw a really usable example of this, which was hey, in Teams chats or in conversations, presumably you'll be coming to that as well. You'll just get these back and forth conversations where messages will go on for freaking ever. And it's such a nightmare because you can't come to a resolution without like providing the updates that you're trying to say, which like in those situations, I generally just create a Word document or I create an Excel spreadsheet and say, stop talking and just go in here and use track changes or make edits and like you'll be fine. And that's sort of why I think the wiki exists, as much as I despise the wiki and Teams for multiple reasons. This really takes over for a lot of the of those situations where like, I don't really need a Word document. I don't really want it in my OneDrive. I don't really want it sitting just randomly in the team. I want there to be a central place to keep this stuff, but I don't want people to have to go back and forth constantly. And I can't edit somebody else's message and provide comments, like that kind of thing. This is a really great example here. And I hadn't realized until I started looking into it today that there's been a public preview of this for a long time. You could have been playing with this for like ever.
I didn't know that. What?
Yeah.
You've been playing with this?
Yes, exactly. And it's been available for a while, and you can see all the different options and how it works. And this is just a GIF that, looping GIF here, but it shows you how you can, in a private chat, at least in this situation, you can have, a task list, or you can put a table in there. There were a bunch of other of options here, but you can mention people, put in dates, and the dates are like interactive. You can actually see them kind of pop up and say like, it tells you 6 days left if something is due on May 26th or whatever. But this to me is like, finally, I've seen something I can bite into when it comes to Fluid Framework, because it's like, this is where this works. And it's not just about being an editable thing by multiple people. It's about the fact that the underlying data is accessible to be able to be surfaced in other apps. Now, back at Ignite 2019, they showed like a 2x2 setup of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and I don't know, OneNote or Outlook or something like that.
Yeah, that one didn't
with
really do anything for me.
Well, so it does.
Like, how do you put like a small little snapshot of Excel in there?
Well, so it makes sense to me now, because it's one of those things where if you have like, your punch list for the project for this week, and you have to present it to upper management, and you want to track it in Teams, and you want to show it on the agenda for the meeting, that's a Word document, and the OneNote notebook. So that's 4 or 5 different places where you'd have to update that stuff individually, which is, if I've heard it once, I've heard it a million times. And if I got a nickel for every time I heard it, I'd be, a millionaire at this point. Stop making me duplicate work and duplicate effort. Like, that's quintupling effort, right? In that situation, if you need all those places to work on that stuff, this kind of fits that need and really kind of fills it in. So I think it's really cool. I'm really finally happy to see this. I note that the file pops up on my O365 home. So I'm hoping that means the stuff is stored in SharePoint, OneDrive, and that means it's searchable, because that's one of the big downsides to the wiki, is that it is not indexed by the search, which is basically one of the biggest downfalls of it, is if you really use it. And it's like the default meeting notes. Like, what the hell? Why would that be the default meeting notes if you can't search it? It's insane. So this is a really good, thing for that. So I think it'll be, I don't know, just pleasantly surprising. I was scrolling through Twitter last week during build, which like, I didn't really watch live. I'm not a developer, but like, oh, that popped up, and it's like, oh, that I do have a use case for. Like, I know people, everyday users, that will not be scared of that and will be excited to go forward with it. So I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, just the deep integration is something that Microsoft continues to really kind of sharpen its knives around. And I'm glad to see this component of it, especially. I mean, this is timely considering that Google announced their version of this at Google I/O 2 weeks ago.
I didn't know that.
I keep an eye.
Did you guys get like the locals newsletter or something? Is that how, like, we don't get that over here?
It was just at the town hall.
Oh, right. Yes. I like that. Good.
Neighborhood watch.
Good. Yep. Nope. I hear that. Yep. Fair enough. Watch out. Larry Sergey out doing that thing again. They might get whacked. Who knows? Yeah, no, I hear that. That's pretty cool though. So yeah, that's what I thought was pretty cool this week. So you got a little bit of some team stuff, actually really underlying all of Office, and finally in a real world way, this stuff will work. Plus some Power Platform stuff from your end of things. So I think that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, something for everyone, as long as you like Power Platform or Teams. There was a ton of stuff with like Azure.
Azure all over the place.
Compliance. Just a lot of stuff that's like underlying that I think we'll see in features at Ignite whenever they announce it later this year.
Definitely. Yeah. One thing I will mention, if you haven't already looked at it, they started doing it, I think it was the first Ignite that went digital or virtual, which would have been in September, yeah, I guess September, whatever. Yeah, last fall. They started doing that whole book of news thing. So there is a build book of news. So if you want, you can, it's in our show notes, or will be once we update it after the show finishes. But just really, really well done. They've done a really good job with that stuff. I'm still poking at people about hey, that last slide of your session where it says your due dates and everything? Like, for some reason, we keep asking. They always give it to us. They always complain about how much time it takes to get those. And it's like, just prepare for them.
Put it in the book of news.
Yeah, just put it in the book of news. But the book of news is great. Very, very well presented, well designed, and it links to all the blog articles and stuff. So it's a nice central place to go. So if you have any questions or are curious about what else was mentioned at Build last week, definitely hit that up.
Yeah, I'm excited.
All right. So you've had access to the chat while I was chatting. Did you notice anything pop up or questions or?
I'm going to go ahead and start with one that caught my attention here from Unsuitable Name, which is great. If organizational search has functionality like Insights or My Analytics, showing your network, I think it could be pretty cool. Undoubtedly, they're using the graph underneath it. So, is it going to showcase some of that value of people that you work with? For sure. Bill Bear showcased some stuff on Twitter, and it looks really compelling. I'm interested to see, they call it an embedded app in Outlook. Is that going to be the fifth tab, or is that going to be as a part of the app bar on the left-hand side? Is it going to be built into the contacts experience? That's going to be really interesting to see. I don't know how they're going to surface it outside of the fact that it's going to be part of the Outlook experience, but I'm interested. I mean, Microsoft is really good at just highlighting those interesting tidbits of like, oh, blah, blah, blah works with that person too. Weird.
Yeah.
I mean, even for me in a 360 person organization and you in a multi-thousand, it's interesting to see how that stuff highlights.
Yep, definitely. All right, I'm gonna push this one up real quick. So this is an interesting, careful what you wish for thing here, which is that people are given the access to play with the expensive items, go build off apps that work really, really well and test, and then want to launch it out to everybody. And now you have to start paying big bucks for it. So that's actually...
If you think that wasn't part of the calculus, I want what you're having.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's fair. Fair.
I mean, that's right up there with the fact that they made it available for people to pay for their own Power Platform licenses within a tenant, which I still think is crazy. Like that.
Yeah, bonkers. Yeah, totally. Let's see. The other one that popped up for me, the wiki is useful for something. I mean, can be. Like, it's easier. It loads faster, I think, than open like Word document. But at the same time, you have to know what you're doing. Like, it's got all the app mentions. Well, I guess Word has app mentions and stuff, but who knows? But yeah, I don't know. I find it sometimes useful. You just have to know what you're walking into. It's kind of like, driving a car without seatbelts. Hey, this car doesn't have seatbelts. You're taking life into your own hands in that one,
Let's see. What's another one that jumps out here? Here we go. We just got stand-up presenter mode. Lucky.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, it's pretty sweet, isn't it?
On the roadmap for enhancements to Microsoft Teams Live. I don't know of anything off the top of my head. I think that the Microsoft Teams apps is really where they're focusing a lot of their attention. We've seen over the last 12 months that people have hacked together a myriad of ways to collaborate in real time in a meeting, whether it's sharing a link in chat and all of us opening it at the same time, or somebody sharing their screen. But to actually have that native built-in experience where I can see everybody on the left and then, taking up an equal amount of the screen is the actual app itself. This is no different than sharing the PowerPoint directly in Teams. It's those kind of experiences, but for everything else. And to open it up to developers, I think that that's going to be a really big component, not just of Microsoft Teams, but specifically to your question, Microsoft Teams Live, whether it's to open up polls, to generate word clouds, to take the moderated Q&A. There's going to be some cool stuff there, I think. Matt, what do you think?
So I know from a recent MVP call I was on that there are some additional features coming.
NDA?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to tell you what it is. I just know there's more stuff coming to PowerPoint Live, which I think is really cool already. They did a nice job finally bringing the PowerPoint presenter experience, and seeing all the stuff there. I don't know what the timing of those things are, but what you have now is probably not all you will have. And I think for the presenter mode, I think those are all out at this point. But they're pretty slick. I like them a lot. Just beware that if an organization hasn't been pushed out to them yet and you start using it, they literally just see you cut out in front of a black background. So it doesn't work. You have to actually have the feature in your tenant. So like if your organization all has it and you're just having internal meetings, fine, no problem. You should be good to go. But if you're meeting with external people, or like in the browser or something like that. I don't believe they're going to see it until well, actually, I don't even know what happens with like an external user that doesn't use O365. I've never tested it before, but
if
yeah,
just probably.
Well, no, the guest is still pulling their own tenant features, I would think. Well, no, because they have to go. Yeah. Maybe it comes down if they switch, which just that adds that much more complexity. Who knows? I have no idea. Nobody knows all this stuff.
Do you want to pull up the next one?
Yeah, go for it. No, I'll let you. You can grab the next one.
So I'll tackle this one real quick. Do we know if Viva Insights data may be extracted for further combination analytics on other platforms? My money says no. I don't think that Microsoft is that. They're really good at keeping their data for themselves. Microsoft is. We see Power BI experiences, but by and large, that information tends to be gated, at least initially. Will that change over time? Probably. But I mean, like, taking the Microsoft reports as an example, we have access to that data. But if you see in other areas where we're operating, like the Power Platform Admin Center and things like that, that data tends to be gated behind APIs, not gated in that you can't get to it, but it's not easily accessible. And I think that Microsoft is really, really focused on, I mean, Matt, you and I have been saying this since the beginning, that Viva as a collective is a rebranding and rebundling of a combination of different features and services. And I think that Microsoft is going to do everything in their power to make that the destination, as opposed to making the data part of that package. I hope I'm wrong. But I don't think that's going to be the case. They may be in the next 2 years where they can point to Power BI and say, you can just ingest it straight into that. But are they going to make it available so you can go put it in Tableau? I don't think so.
All right, let's take one last one here. And I thought this one was good because I didn't see all of it, so I didn't see the Windows stuff. But it's also a question to two very dedicated Mac OS users. So
I was paying attention for this because
you did? Oh, okay. All
Sun Valley I'm excited for the Windows 10 Sun Valley update. Them talking about this being the biggest visual overhaul in a decade or something to that effect, which is not a huge amount of time in the Windows universe, but I'm interested to see, you already see them going in and changing icons they haven't touched since the 90s. So, I'm optimistic, especially with them announcing that they killed Windows 10X and that this is all going to be effort focused on Windows 10. I'm excited to see what a fresh coat of paint actually looks like with the lessons learned from Windows 8.
Yeah, sure, definitely. There are plenty of those.
But it was really funny to see Satya in the kickoff say, we're not going to talk about Windows at all. Just know that it's super important, but we're not going to talk about it at all.
Fair enough. All right, good. So I think that probably is good for this episode. I think now is a good time to send the one last reminder that now is your last chance to sign up for next week's Microsoft 365 Collaboration Conference, which Sean and I are both speaking at. If you can do it in person, at this point, I think probably just U.S. citizens are going to be the ones that will be able to do it. Great, but it's also going to be virtual. So we actually just got a whole bunch of instructions from the conference leads on how we're going to be doing both in person and virtual at the same time. It's going to be a lot of juggling for us. Sean, best of luck for that full day.
Yeah, they're clearly paying attention to the experience for virtual. So for those,
absolutely, yeah, totally, yeah, to the point that
painfully focused on it.
Yes, because even some of the presenters are going to be virtual, and they asked us, I'm volunteering to do one of the sessions, so it's going to be my computer. I'm going to be in Teams. I'm going to be the one leading in the room for when Joanne Klein is going to be speaking, kind of thing. So it's totally set up, and they've got things set up really well. So you'll find the link to that to sign up in the show notes after this. So we'll update everything with all the stuff that we talked about. So definitely check that out.
If you use the last name Wade or the last name Bugler, depending on who looks better.
Wow,
who
offered.
You think is the more handsome of the two of us? Let that
should have worn an actual button-down shirt today. Look, he's just killing me here, dude. All right. So, and based on that, we're going to be on location or in person next week. So we haven't had time to talk about what we're going to do for the episode next week. So it may not be live. Most likely probably won't be because conference Wi-Fi is never trustworthy. So bear with us. It may go back to a recorded session that we post sometime early next week. We'll see what happens. But we will definitely keep people in the loop and we'll go from there. So, all right, I think that probably does it for us. So, everybody, thank you so much for watching. As always, a like and subscribe is much appreciated. Leave a comment below to continue the discussion. And Sean, I look forward to seeing you next week, buddy.
It's going to be in person. That's wild.
I know, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be like, what is we're going to go back in time or something along those lines. I don't know.
Do you still have a lower half? We don't know.
We're going to find out the hard way.
Subscribe to find
out.
out.
All right. Definitely. All right, man. We'll see you next week. And everybody else, tune in for next week, hopefully, as well. And thanks again for watching. Take care.